All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty wild concept. Why doing well with money actually has way less to do with math or being a genius, and literally everything to do with human behavior. You know, we're always taught that finance is just this strict math-based field, right? You plug data into a formula, it tells you exactly what to do, and you just execute it like a robot. But here's the thing, knowing what to do tells you absolutely nothing about what goes on in your head when you actually try to do it in the real world. So we're going to explore some timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness, and uncover why financial success isn't really a hard science at all. It's actually this completely fascinating, incredibly nuanced soft skill. Let's get into it.
Let's kick things off with a true, honestly kind of mind-bending paradox that completely shatters what we think we know about financial success. Just think about this for a second. It is physically impossible to imagine a story about a janitor performing a heart transplant better than a Harvard-trained surgeon, right? Or, say, a gas station attendant designing a skyscraper that's structurally superior to one built by top-tier architects in the world. That simply doesn't happen. No way. But in the world of investing and personal finance, it absolutely does.
Okay, let's look at an extreme real-life contrast here. Ronald Read and Richard Fiscone. So Ronald was this incredibly humble guy. He fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years and swept floors at JCPenney for another 17. He lived in a very modest house, and his main hobby was literally just chopping firewood. But when he passed away in 2014 at the age of 92, he left behind a staggering net worth of over $8 million. And he gave almost all of it to his local hospital and library. How did he do it? He just saved what little he could and waited decades for it to compound. Now, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we have Richard Fiscone, a brilliant, Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive. The guy was so successful he retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist. He had every conceivable advantage, the best education, the best training, the best network in the industry. But he borrowed heavily to expand this massive 18,000-square-foot mansion. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, he lost absolutely everything to bankruptcy. Ronald was extraordinarily patient. Richard was extraordinarily greedy.
And this story brilliantly illustrates our core concept. Financial success is not a hard science. It is a soft skill, driven entirely by how you behave. The sheer fact that a humble janitor can massively outperform a hyper-educated top-tier finance executive, it proves that what you know is entirely secondary to how you act. We call this soft skill the psychology of money, and mastering it is the real key to thriving, no matter what your background or your income level is. That's exactly what we're unpacking today.
Okay, let's jump right into Module 1, Why No One is Crazy.
It is totally fascinating how your exact birth year dictates the stock market reality you experience during your most impressionable years, your teens and 20s. Let's say you were born in 1950. The stock market went literally nowhere during your young adult life if you adjust for inflation. It was just this stagnant, unrewarding place to put your money. But if you were born just 20 years later, in 1970, the S&P 500 increased almost tenfold during that exact same stage of your life. So these two groups go through the rest of their lives with completely different, deeply ingrained underlying beliefs about how risk and reward actually operate. They aren't looking at different math. They are looking through completely different emotional lenses.
And the exact same thing goes for inflation. If you grew up in the 1960s, you experienced massive runaway inflation. That fundamentally alters your relationship with money for good. You intimately remember the gas lines, prices skyrocketing, and your paycheck stretching noticeably less far every single month. That leaves lasting emotional scars that dictate how you save and spend. But if you were born in 1990, inflation was essentially non-existent for the first 3 decades of your life. Your worldview on money looks totally alien to someone born in the 60s. The crucial takeaway here is that your personal experiences make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's actually happened in the world, but they make up like 80% of how you think the world works.
So think about when we see low-income families buying lottery tickets, blowing what little safety net they have on a 1 in a million chance. To a lot of us, that seems utterly crazy, right? But we really have to use some deep empathy here to understand that every financial decision makes perfect sense to the person making it in that exact moment. They're just checking the boxes they feel they need to check to survive psychologically. For someone who feels permanently locked out of the traditional paths to wealth, buying a lottery ticket might literally feel like the only way to pay for a dream. What looks crazy from the outside is often a perfectly logical, deeply human emotional response on the inside, especially when they're looking at people who are already living the dream they so desperately want.
We also have to remember that, at the end of the day, we are all essentially financial newbies. The modern tools we rely on for survival and retirement
They were practically invented yesterday in the grand scheme of human history. The 401k, which is literally the absolute backbone of American retirement savings, didn't even exist until 1978. And the Roth IRA? Born in 1998. We walk around acting like managing personal finance is this ancient human instinct we should all have mastered perfectly by now, but in reality, we have less than 50 years of collective experience with the modern financial system. We're completely winging it.
Seriously, the very concept of a dignified retirement where you don't just work until you die is at most 2 generations old. Before World War II, the historical expectation was simply that you'd labor until your body gave out. The whole idea of saving up enough capital to just sit on a beach for 20 years, it's incredibly new. So if you or someone you know makes a mistake with money, just remember, we aren't crazy. We're just trying to navigate a super complex, highly emotional game that is basically brand new to our species.
Moving right along, let's get into Module 2, the siblings of luck and risk.
Look, Bill Gates is undeniably brilliant, incredibly hardworking, and a generational visionary, obviously. But he also had a staggering, almost incomprehensible stroke of luck. Back in 1968, there were roughly 303 million high school-age people in the world. Out of that 303 million, only about 300 attended Lakeside School in Seattle. Why does that matter? Because it was one of the only high schools in the entire world that had the cash and the foresight to buy an advanced computer terminal for its students. And Bill Gates just happened to be one of those 300 kids. It's a literal 1 in a million chance. As Gates himself admits, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. To truly wrap our heads around this, we have to compare Gates to his incredibly smart best friend, Kent Evans. Kent was just as skilled with computers, he shared the exact same sprawling business ambitions, and by Gates' own account, Kent was actually the best student in the class. They planned to conquer the world together. But tragically, Kent experienced a 1 in a million fatal mountaineering risk before he even graduated high school. It's the exact same forces of probability, just working in completely opposite directions. Luck and risk are absolute doppelgangers. You really cannot believe in the power of one without fully respecting the power of the other.
As Gates himself observed, success is a lousy teacher. It can be incredibly misleading because it completely obscures the massive, uncontrollable role that luck plays in our lives. You know, when we judge other people's success, we often attribute it entirely to hard work. And when we judge failure, we attribute it purely to laziness or bad decisions. We just desperately prefer simple stories of cause and effect. But the reality, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems. There is always a silent partner in the room with you. It's either luck propelling you forward or risk dragging you down.
Which brings us to Module 3, the trap of never enough.
Consider the unbelievable, almost cinematic story of Rajat Gupta. This guy started life as an orphan in the crushing slums of Kolkata. He didn't start on third base. He wasn't even in the stadium, right? Yet through sheer intellect and grit, he pulled himself all the way up to become the CEO of McKinsey, the world's most prestigious consulting firm. He sat on the boards of 5 massive public companies, including Goldman Sachs, and amassed a personal fortune of around $100 million. By every conceivable metric, he had truly, undeniably won the game of life.
But here's the kicker. For Gupta, $100 million just wasn't enough. He desperately wanted to be a billionaire. So he threw his entire life, his completely unblemished reputation, and his freedom away in exactly 16 seconds. During the absolute depths of the 2008 financial crisis, while sitting on the Goldman Sachs board, he learned of a massive pending investment from Warren Buffett. 16 seconds after the meeting ended, he called a hedge fund manager with the inside tip, generating a quick, highly illegal $1 million profit. He risked everything he had and everything he needed for money he didn't have and didn't even need. It is the ultimate tragedy, and is the ultimate proof of just how catastrophic lacking a sense of enough can be.
Now contrast Gupta's destructive, blinding greed with the profound wisdom of the author Joseph Heller. There's this great story where Heller is at a party hosted by a billionaire hedge fund manager. Kurt Vonnegut points out to Heller that their host made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his massively successful novel, Catch-22, over its entire history. And Heller simply responded, "Yes, but I have something he will never have, enough." Realizing that having enough is a state of mind, that is a wealth that no amount of pure money can ever buy.
So, let's bring it all together for our conclusion, mastering your financial psychology.
We've seen exactly how emotional baggage, hidden luck, and unchecked greed can derail even the smartest people among us. The real key takeaway from this explainer is that you need to stop trying to perfectly emulate extreme billionaires.
Their outcomes are so heavily influenced by the extreme, completely unpredictable ends of luck and risk that they are essentially unrepeatable. Instead, you want to look for broad, mundane patterns of success, like the fact that people who control their own time tend to be much, much happier. Acknowledge the invisible hand of luck in your own victories, and most importantly, leave generous room for forgiveness and understanding when you or the people around you experience failure.
I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up. The next time you sit down to make a major decision with your money, take a hard look in the mirror. Ask yourself, are you truly reacting to the math and the cold facts right in front of you, or are you simply reacting to your own hidden emotional history? Are you actually investing for the future, or are you just trying to pay off the ghosts of your past? Because I promise you, once you master the psychology of money, the math finally starts to take care of itself.